And now, Rate That Album, Season 3, with Paul Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming. Two guys who know stuff. Hi, and welcome to Rate That Album, the back and forth podcast review where myself, Paul Muad'Dib, and my wonderful friend Joseph Fremming discuss albums from all over the board. Joe, how you doing tonight, buddy?
It would have been better if I didn't have to hear this album.
We are doing Like a Virgin, Madonna's second album, released in 1984. Joe, yeah, you kind of alluded to this. What do you know, or what do you know of the Lady Madonna?
What is there not to know? She's been famous our entire lives, Paul.
Our entire lives.
I was born in 81 and she already had she's just been everywhere my entire life, and she has a lot of good songs.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just say my biggest complaint with her is she never had a great album.
Sure.
Yep. And this album we'll discuss does suffer from that, I think. And I think it happened a lot in the 80s where people were more focused on the singles and the album fell by the wayside. So you'd get albums like this where it's like really got a lot of amazing singles on it, and then the rest of the songs fall flat.
Yes. So we'll definitely, because there's a lot I want to say about this album.
And I also say one of the best songs from this album, it's not even on the US release. It got the overseas version. That's Into the Groove.
Oh, yes.
Not on this one. Not on the one we're reviewing.
No, Into the Groove.
We're in America. We don't get Into the Groove.
Yeah, no, we don't. So as you said, Madonna for us has been famous our entire lives. Her first album came out in 1983. And she was a superstar. But even before that, what people don't realize is she had filmed a movie back in 1979. Did you know about this movie, A Certain Sacrifice? Did you ever hear about this movie, Joe?
If it's not Desperately Seeking Susan, I don't know what the hell it is.
So it's considered a 1985 drama because it was released in 1985, because it was shelved after it was done in 1981. But it was a oddball independent film that was shot for like $20,000. And almost all the entire cast was unpaid. It's an exploitive piece of trash. It's got it's bad to the point where people have come out and have said that really the fact that Madonna was in it in 1979 was the only reason why the movie even sold as well as it did, where there isn't really any figures on it.
Is that kind of like Sylvester Stallone's softcore porno?
Nailed it. Yeah, and it was by a Stephen Lewicki, and I don't really have much on this Stephen John Lewicki in terms of like what he's all done. He doesn't even have a wiki page. He's got an IMDb page, and the only thing on it is this movie, and that he was in a documentary about this movie. Or was a part of like a documentary of Madonna's, which happened to bring up this movie. So yeah, so actually she started as an actress in 1979, and then moved over to do music. And that's
like big in the club scenes too. Like she was like a personality in dance clubs, and I think she might have done some modeling too.
Correct. Yes. No, you're absolutely right. Yes. She was a fixture in the New York club scene, and she was a dancer. Absolutely. This was one of those things that was her thing. She's been around. I mean, you got to realize Madonna is also relatively young in terms of this too. I mean, she is only 63. So she had like right away, like by the time she was 20, she was already a big deal in New York and doing that kind of thing. And, she was involved with David Gilroy. If you know who he is, he's the lead singer of the group Breakfast Club, and then later went on to do like children's music. And
she also brought the Beastie Boys on their first big tour.
oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I forget what tour it was, but yeah, they one of their big breaks was opening up for Madonna, and her audience didn't really get them.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Shocker.
But
yes.
it kind of goes to like, she's like I have a lot of respect for Madonna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me
she
too.
Takes a lot of chances and different music genres, so it's kind of crazy that she brought a bunch of no unknown hip hop guys from New York.
Yeah.
On a tour, so.
No, that's fantastic. That was probably her Virgin tour, I'm gonna guess, because that was 1985.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And but no, Madonna. I mean, she's done movies, she's done music. And when I say music, it's not just she's writing music. Like by the time she was doing this album, Like a Virgin, she was already pushing to be her own producer of her stuff. So like. Well, let's get into this one. Let's get into Like a Virgin. So it was released in 1984. One of the things I really wanted to hear, and I think I was the producer. I wanted to know who produced this album. And it turned out it was Niles Rodgers, who I actually really enjoy. I like Niles Rodgers.
Oh, yeah. His work on Let's Dance with Bowie.
Oh, so good.
Fucking great. Like, and his Chic.
Yes.
And I love it. I have so much. I love Niles Rodgers. Like, he's like, you know, top tier, like, awesomeness in music history. And I don't think he gets enough accolades, even though like he's all over the map, but I think more people should know about him.
Thank you. Thank someone else. Finally, Joe. Finally, someone else gets my love of Niles Rodgers. Like when he was doing, like when he got brought in to help with Daft Punk, I was super like, people are like, oh, cool. Pharrell's on it. I'm like, fuck you. Niles Rodgers on this goddamn thing. I need to have this album. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he has done work with Diana Ross, David Bowie, INXS, Madonna, Duran Duran. If you don't know Lashik and Sister Sledge, you're missing out. Yeah, absolutely. He's done a bunch of video games and movie soundtracks. The guy is a genius, like straight up genius. Unfortunately, I think this is this is a problem album. So Madonna had her self debut, and let's also get in this. A lot of musicians, their second album is usually their make or break album, right? Like it's the sophomore album that gets it. You have to understand that with Madonna's first album, she had songs like Holiday, Borderline, and Lucky Star, which are all three very great songs. At this point, she knew what she wanted to do, and I think there was some issues here. Like she really wanted to be the producer, and then the record company wasn't ready for it. They're like, "This is only your second album." You know, they're looking at some people, and they brought in Niles Rodgers. People who they had actually talked about was. There was another person that they were leaning on. It was Reggie Lucas, Reggie Lucas was the producer of her first album, and she didn't like some of the stuff that was done, so she didn't want Reggie Lewis back, and she was going to do it herself. And there was talk about, well, you want to get Prince's producer, things like that. But again, they eventually landed on Niles. Joe, what is your initial reaction to this album? I just want to hear what your initial thoughts were.
It was outside the singles, largely forgettable.
Yes, this album, as we talked about, you know, I brought it up. I said, hey, we're going to do one of two albums, and we brought up the one that was kind of, I said it has some controversy for it. The fact that this album is even controversial to begin with, it, like, you know, we talked about jokingly a little bit, but not jokingly, about how scared white America was of Two Live Crew and NWA. They were also scared of Madonna.
Yep.
And that, to me, this more so than anything points to okay, this is truly, truly, truly how irrationally fearful white America was in the 80s. Like a Virgin terrified people. It was brought up as one of the dirty 15. It's touted as one of the moral decays of America, that how dare this woman sing about lyrics like a virgin. There, and I will say there is some things in here, and we'll get to it. When we go in, I think we'll go track by track, because I do think there are some things to say here. But overall, yeah, it's a very forgettable album.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of her a lot of my issues with the Madonnas. She never really had a full out like great album. It was just always like single heavy with like 2 or 3 songs, and then the rest is just I mean, it's like with her, your best. She's one of those situations where you're almost better off just getting the Immaculate Collection. That's all you're really going to need. Because I don't see anybody ever like pining to hear Angel or Stay or Shooby Doo.
Yeah, absolutely, no, 100%. So let's start with Material Girl.
Yep, this song. I mean, again, much to her own annoyance, became her kind of her nickname, the Material Girl.
Yep,
haunt her for the rest of her career. Whenever you see her on any sort of media, it's the Material Girl, Madonna.
Yeah, I know, right?
And the song is all like tongue in cheek about materialism in the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, and there is a satire there, but I think there was people, again, why America was afraid. Like a Virgin, they took literally. Like they took these things literal. And I do think there was this satire, tongue in cheek, as you said, with it, but it wasn't thing. Now, this is the thing that bothers me. We're going to start it right here with this whole album. The production of it, to me, is awful.
Yeah, it's very tinny and thin.
Yes, and
which I wouldn't expect from Niles Rodgers.
No, what had happened was Jason Corsaro, who was the record's audio engineer, persuaded Rodgers to use a new technique called digital recording, which they believed was going to be the wave of the future. So they used a Sony 3324 24-track digital tape recorder and a Sony F1 2-track during the mixing of the tracks. So what happened was Madonna recorded the lead parts of the song in a small wooden high ceiling piano room, and then they placed these gobos around her and had like these different ways of doing things. So that's what it was. So once the vocals met it, they added these keyboard parts from which was this really, I mean, you got to think about, again, this is like 1983 when it's being recorded. And it was this thing called it was a sequencer called the Prophet 5, which was a very, very limited processor. So, there was this new way of recording. And I think no one, including Rodgers, knew how to do it, but they all believed that this was going to be the future of recording. So they did it. So this is something that's very interesting where, well, it didn't, I think, work very well. This was the prototype for recording digitally going forward.
Yeah, it sounds bad.
Digital
recording is really suffer, I think, over analog, but that's just my opinion.
And especially in the early 80s, it was going to. I mean, it just, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You and I have talked about, we talked about earlier in our early episodes when we were hitting some of those 80s songs, you had said, hey, I'd never listened to these albums because I hated that 80s sound. I didn't realize there was 80s music out there that didn't have that 80s sound. Remember we had that conversation. And I think it's because we look at things like Madonna, who was very prominent musically, I think in our early and throughout the 80s, where she always kind of had this sound. And I personally don't like it, but people went with it. So yeah, you had Material Girl. Then you had Angel, which, I mean,
yeah, like it's, you know, it just feels like straight up outside of Material Girl, Like a Virgin, and Dress You Up.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of this just seems like filler.
Yeah.
And again, that's always been kind of like my complaint. Like, 'cause when I worked in record stores, I'd throw on her albums from time to time, and I'd just be like, man, outside this, it was always like, it was just a continuous like thing I kept finding. It's like, outside the singles, this really doesn't do much for me. It just kind of falls flat. Like, they're just going through the motions just to pad out an album.
Yes. And this also points out with this song in general, there's also this other thing that Madonna does that I do not like. And it is that alto thing that she does, that became kind of a signature for her, where she has this very beautiful soprano voice. And she has a great, she does have a range, but she does this thing where she goes down here. And I for whatever
that comes up pretty badly in Love Don't Live Here Anymore.
Yeah, right. Yes, it does. It's very prominent in Love Don't Live Here Anymore, but it also happens throughout this album. And I get it. I mean, because again, I know it's a form of dissonance. And I personally, as a musical artist, I love using dissonance. But I don't like using it in a vocal dissonance. I like using dissonance when it comes to musical. And for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with dissonance, you have these chords that are supposed to go together, and you know where the notes are supposed to be. And the idea of using dissonance is you purposely use things that aren't supposed to fit in the place, so it makes it when it switches and does. The idea is, and the psychology and the musical theory is, it makes the parts when it finally does get to the parts that actually make sense musically, it opens that up and makes it more bright and apparent.
Yeah. If people want to, like, a good example of it done well, I would say would be like Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yes, 100%.
Where all of a sudden you get the like that, that doesn't really kind of fit with the other chord progressions, and grunge really went heavy on that dissonance kind of thing. It wasn't just Nirvana; it was like Pixies and Soundgarden, Mudhoney, like all the. That was kind of like a lot of what the grunge sound was.
Yes,
there's a lot of dissonance.
Yep. Now another band though that I think was really, really good at it was Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd was amazing. Adam Hart Mother, there's this whole part where it kind of goes off the rails and does these things, and it's an incredible amount of dissonance. And then when it crescendos in Adam Hart Mother, it just, like, when it clicks, it's like your brain is like so thankful for it that it just makes it that much more climactic when it does.
I think Echoes does a good job of it too.
Echoes as well does that's a wonderful, thought of dissonance and proper use of it. So then you have Like a Virgin. Now this was, again, the track that got her in trouble. And it wasn't.
Women shouldn't be singing about sex, Paul. I mean, this was Ronald Reagan's America.
This was Ronald Reagan's America, and what I loved too was she knew. And she went on MTV's Music Award in 1984 and performed this in a white wedding dress. And it ended with her basically pulling a Prince before Prince pulled it in Purple Rain, which was her humping the floor and being very, very sexual right on MTV. And
somebody please think about the children, Paul.
Someone please think about the children, please. I mean, this is still like one of the more, still on a lot of people. That performance is on a lot of people's shocking list for what it occurred for.
So benign by today's standards.
It's so benign, but because it was brought up again by the PMRC, the PMRC, part of that whole the Dirty 15, and they used, excuse me, Like a Virgin as no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Like a Virgin. It was Dress You Up, but the whole album itself. But the lyrical content of Dress You Up was very sexual, which again, interestingly enough, there's other things on this album that I think were more apparent, and we'll kind of talk about that. So yeah, I mean, it's so benign to the point where, like the last two albums we listened to, I wasn't going to listen to my kids in the car with. This one, I was like, yeah, totally. Listen to
I think NWA is all right.
Yeah, NWA is fine for
I would Two Live Crew I could see. I think NWA, because they actually had shit to say. And I think
very good point.
That stuff is more relevant. But I'm not raising your kids, man.
So. No. You bring up a very valid point. And there were songs, I should say. Let me say that. Yeah. There was no Two Live Crew song I was okay with. There were certain NWA songs I was fine with. Let me put it that way. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And the other thing is, I remember this sounding better production wise as a kid than I do now.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I did when I was in the car, that I played this song, and then I went over to Weird Al's Like a Surgeon.
Weird Al has better production.
It has a better production. It is like
that was like I believe it was his second album too.
It was on his Dare to Be Stupid album. Yeah. Yeah, Dare to Be Stupid album, which was, I believe, it was his third album. It was his third album.
Okay.
But that's also the one where Devo got super upset with him for having done the song Dare to Be Stupid.
Yeah.
Because
he did Devo better than Devo.
He did Devo better than Devo. I've seen interviews with Mark, and he was like, who's the lead of Devo and later.
Mark Mothersbaugh, yeah.
Yeah, Mark Mothersbaugh. And he was like, when he did this, we all sat around and were just both astonished and pissed because he had hit the sound that we had been trying to do and did it better than us.
And with the lyrical content too, which was hilarious because the whole de-evolution of Devo and shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like they were just blown away that this fucking dork
with an
accordion nailed this electronic, satire, as you said, deconstruction so well and better than them. Yeah, no, it really was a blow to Devo, interestingly enough. So yeah, I mean, but the production was even better than that. And I also think that's really cool. This is one of those things too, where I don't think Like a Virgin, honestly, would be as remembered as much if it wasn't for Like a Surgeon.
Yeah, I would argue a lot of 80s songs that Al parodied would largely be forgotten if it wasn't for him.
I would completely agree with that. I mean, no one really talks about, I want a new drug.
Well, except when you get to the Ghostbusters lawsuit.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, yeah, that's true. So then you had Over and Over.
Yeah. Nope. This did nothing for me.
The fact that it was 4 minutes was way, way, way too long.
Well, those are pretty long, Paul.
Well, yeah, but
they're all like clocking at a form.
I know. That's rough.
And other times I don't mind, and like with the singles I'm okay with, but when you're just padding stuff out, that's when I have a problem with it.
Completely agree. So then you have Love Don't Live Here Anymore.
This was the one I really just did not like, and that's what we talked about before when she tries to hit the lower register.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and the production sounds so corny.
Yes, the production's corny. Yep, and that's also a cover.
Yeah, and it's just it feels like there's no bass on this album, which is weird because she's especially at this time, known for dance.
Yep. Yeah, she's really known for dance at this point.
Dance pop music, and there's really I don't feel the bass. Maybe that was just me, but
no, I didn't know. I listened to it on both in my car, and I have a Bluetooth speaker thing that I listen to around the house that has sound like a better sound quality out of it. And no, I didn't really hear a lot of the bass. And again, I think they were going for a different type of arrangement than what Rose Royce had done with it. And then Jimmy Nail also covered it later. This is just, again, I see what they're trying to go with, and maybe had it been analog and not so of that 80s really bad synth, that I think it could have been much better. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it suffers from bad production.
It suffers from bad production because, I mean, I'm looking at it, they're saying, hey, Madonna had never sang over a live orchestra. So apparently there was a live orchestra, but the translation of it was really, really not great.
I mean, this is the song's kind of ballad.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work for me. And like everything about it just hit me wrong, which is not a good sign. When every element of a song is just like, it's like squirting lemon juice on a wound.
Sure.
You know, this kind of does that for me. Not like to that extent like Lindsey Buckingham did, but it was like it was close. It was adjacent. The lemon juice sting. You know,
as much as I didn't like the low notes that she was doing, that she does, I felt was doing it too much. I do admit, so there's a lot of this, like the first, honestly, even Like a Virgin, and even Material Girl, the production on it reminded me of a karaoke bar. Like that's what it came out to now. Like this is like, it's almost like someone singing over karaoke. I will say, however, with this song, there were notes and the way that she was singing, I felt there was a gravitas to it that I didn't get from the first 4 tracks. So I commend that aspect of it, where I was like, okay, there's actual emotion here, which again is interesting because she was known for more of a pop dance type of thing, and this is not a dance song. So this is one of those, I think, being pushed. This was really pushed by Niles to get her out of her comfort zone. Did it work 100%? No, but I think this is a blueprint for what would be later tracks that would work, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Then you have Dress You Up. There's something about this song that I actually really enjoy.
This is probably my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, honestly, mine too.
It's not like the huge hits. It's like that second tier hit, but it's like that second tier hit that should be, in my opinion, more well known than Material Girl or Like a Virgin, because this is a fucking great song.
It really, 100%. Like there's things musically with it that I really enjoy. Like there's that do 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 do, and like it works, and it has a Prince vibe to it too.
Yeah.
To me, I think that I really enjoy about it. Like it almost reminds me of "Baby, You're Gonna Star Now."
Yeah, I feel like it's also kind of like a hint of like what her music will kind of, the direction it'll start heading into. Mm-hmm. A little bit more, like a little more with the Vogue and Vogue and Like a Prayer stuff and like that. So I think that this song, especially, if you're going to point something that this is the DNA of what's going to come after.
And what's interesting is, so Material Girl was not written by her, Like a Virgin was not written by her, and Dress You Up was not written by her. Yet those are 3 things that she would take later. Material Girl not so much, but definitely Like a Virgin and Dress You Up, and that style and that vibe, and really make it her own. So it's really interesting to me that the 3 major tracks off this album were not ones that were written by her. So next one is Shooby Doo.
This is largely, this is bad. This is not a top tier song at all, Paul.
No, well, and the thing is the track. Okay, the album itself is only 38 minutes. A lot of this, I think, really is filler, because this really should have been an EP. Yeah. This should have been 4 or 5 songs, in my opinion, and that should have been it. It should have been Material Girl, I'll give Angel, I'll give Like a Virgin, Love Don't Live Here Anymore, Dress You Up, Go Home, You're Done. Like, that's what it should have been. Next is Pretender. Again, interesting.
Lyrically it's interesting.
Lyrically it's interesting. And she talks about one night stands in this, which again, you didn't come out and do.
Well, she's also talking about like being pressured into it too, which is like, that's kind of like, you didn't hear a lot of that in pop music before about like not wanting the one night stand, but being pressured into it. Cause if he does it once, he'll do it twice line. So yeah, it's just, it suffers from musically being uninteresting.
It suffers from lyrically there's a lot going on here, and it's very progressive lyrically. And I think that is what her saving grace was with a lot of like music heads in the industry, was she was going places that people weren't going, and she was unabashed about doing. She was
kind of like doing a lot with like sexuality and themes and stuff that Bowie was doing, with like starting with like Ziggy Stardust and on, just kind of like flipping things on there, bringing up topics that most people really didn't want to talk about.
Yes, and where Bowie was still very much giving it kind of the double entendre, with Madonna, she was coming out and being more, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, she's being more assertive about it. Like less cagey, more like, this is what we're talking about. I'm talking about fucking.
Yeah, I'm talking about fucking. I'm talking about being pressured in the fucking. Yes. And so, and let's get back to that. We'll hold that for a second. Then we'll get Stay, which, again.
Yeah, it just, this album drops like a lead balloon, just like plop.
Really bad after Dress You Up. Really, really drops bad. Okay, so yeah, I think this, she was coming out with these themes and with these lyrics, and again, even for example, so truth be told, I was listening a little bit to when I remember I said I had 2 albums last time. I was either gonna be this or was gonna be Bruce Willis. I've also been listening to Bruce Willis, and Under the Boardwalk is a cover. When you listen to Under the Boardwalk, it sounds very innocent. But when you look at it, they're talking about fucking under the boardwalk.
Oh, well, Paul, I'll send you the clip from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they go under the boardwalk in the Jersey Shore. Charlie sees 2 homeless guys butt fucking. He's like, this is not the wonders under the boardwalk. This is horrifying.
But it's the wonders under the boardwalk is what it is. That's hilarious. They did that. So there is always these entendres out there. I mean, even the song, if you've watched the New Kids in the Hall, Melanie.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just going to do a side bar here, Paul.
Yeah.
I love the New Kids in the Hall, and the Melanie skit with Dave Foley is my favorite.
I was dying. You could ask, my wife will testify, I was dying during that skit.
Oh my god, it's just like the dead eyes. Like, yeah, now back to Melanie. You got Kelly's brand new key.
And we do nothing but rock. Now there's
Talking about dissonance, the jarring comparison of his reality and like this. The song.
Yes. So it's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I would recommend the New Kids in the Hall season. It's not like I saw you post about it's not as edgy as their earlier stuff, but I think it's just as good. And it's better, I would argue, for some of the things.
Because if you look back at the early
Buddy Cole's glory hole thing had me die.
Oh my God. I was so glad they brought back Buddy Cole's where they weren't going to. Okay, so quick aside, because we're talking about Kids in the Hall now for a little bit. So I watched the original, series, and it does work a little bit better because they always were playing older characters usually, but they were young, and that was kind of, the funny thing. Now, I don't know if you saw, it's also on Amazon, Death Comes to Town.
I haven't watched that yet.
Okay.
It's on my list. Like I remember when it came out, I just never got around to seeing it, but I was more excited with the new season because it was back to the sketch comedy. And we should also point out Kids in the Hall. We grew up with that in the 90s.
Yes, we did.
And I think they opened, at least like for me, because I didn't know a whole lot about gay people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started watching Kids in the Hall and stuff, I think it kind of made me think about things a little differently. And I love it. I love Kids in the Hall so much.
I love Kids in the Hall.
Buddy Cole.
Well, because I think especially in our middle America, right? We talked about it last episode, where gay was used as like a derogatory term. Again, it wasn't anything other than that. But then when you look at it from the Kids in the Hall, and you see these real three-dimensional characters in these situations, and it's funny, and it made it less frightening, I think, for middle America. Yeah. I think Kids in the Hall were very, very instrumental in making homosexuality less frightening.
Yeah, especially with our generation.
Because
that was like on Comedy Central all the time, and it was just like you watched it, and it was just like, this show is, Buddy Cole always stands out. The pen sketch.
My pen.
That, and then my favorite, because I worked in record stores, was the Doors one.
The Doors one.
Plays the record store guy.
You don't know the Doors. You're not a Doors fan. You got that Depeche Mode? No, you got Depeche Mode.
Yeah. No, like, so this new season, and then the Melody skit with Dave Foley.
Yes.
Just because it's like, on paper, it's not funny.
On paper,
no. But I think, like, all of us after, COVID and everything, we could all like deeply relate to that, like that routine while we're in lockdown.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I think
there's like 1,000-yard stare on his face.
Well, I have friends and I love them. I asked them, what did you do during the pandemic? Oh, we watched The Office 3 times. And I was like, okay. Yeah. No, you can relate to the Melanie sketch, can't you? Yeah. No, so anyways, digressing back to Melanie before we get back to Madonna. That song, I got a brand new pair of roller skates, you got a brand new key. There's been a lot of like innuendo about, what did they mean? And she came out and said it wasn't really all that sexual, but people made it sexual, right? We talked about it with Rocky Mountain High. People assumed he talked about getting high with weed. There was a lot of songs out there that you couldn't get away with doing some of the stuff. They tried, like in the 30s, with a lot of jazz music. Holy shit, that's what got a lot of those guys arrested and on the radar, was the lyrical content they were doing. So it started to become, especially in the 40s and 50s, more acceptable if you did it through metaphor, poetically, which is just kind of the way you do with music anyways. But you didn't really talk about, look at some of the anti-war songs. A lot of them, they were afraid to come out and be like it. You had some people like Neil Young and, that were out there and being very, upfront about it. But a lot of people were kind of alluding to the things. And again, alluding to, the Beatles were the masters of it. We're going to have this song, but what does it mean? What could it mean? Look at all these different things with this. Madonna, she broke the mold in the regards of kind of breaking that unspoken word rule in music of you don't talk about sex.
Yeah.
Especially a woman. So unfairly to her, it being the 80s, she was branded as a slut and a whore for talking about adult stuff in an adult manner. Again, you look at this, and I said, you had mentioned me. Well, why are we? We said we weren't going to do any more controversies. The controversy is that this was ever a controversy.
Well, it might be again, considering how things are going, Paul.
Yeah, very, very. Yeah, you bring up a valid point there, sir. Yeah, and Dress You Up in My Love is. The fact that it was added to the PMRC for its sexual lyrical content. Okay, you just heard the last 2 episodes that we did, 2 live crew, and NWA coming out with straight up fuck the police, and with their lyrical content. Okay, Dress You Up, yes. So I got a style. You got a style. That's what all the girls say. Satin sheets and luxury so fine. All your suits are custom made in London, but I got something that you'll really like. Gonna dress you up in my love, all over your body. I wonder, were they worried? I really think that they're worried that she wants sissies. like, I think that's what it was. I mean, and again, I'm using 80s context here, by the way. Okay, I'm going to get to the next one. Feel the silky touch of my caress. They'll keep you looking so brand new. Let me cover you with velvet kisses. I'll create a look that's made for you. Again, these aren't all that sexual, and yet people are losing their minds. Then pretty much the rest of the song is just gonna dress you up in my love all over your body from your head to your toes. That's really the rest of it. It's so repetitive, but it's good and it's there. So I don't know where they got in those two verses this grotesque sexual language, Joe.
That's right there, Paul. It shook them to their core.
Again, okay, this.
They were scared. They were scared of their own shadows, Paul. Like that was. It was always white fright.
Yeah, I mean, okay, and again, let's look at 1984, and then again in 1989, you had As Nasty as They Want to Be by Two Live Crew. In 1984, they were worried about lyrics that were so benign, and I will argue we're still giving that entendre. I mean, things like feel the silky touch of my crest, they'll keep you looking so brand new. Again, that's not great lyrical content to begin with, but to make it,
there's a lot of sexism on this. I would
nailed
argue
it.
Led Zeppelin and Van Halen had more graphic depictions of sexuality, but they got away with it because they were men.
100%. Do we want to talk about Backdoor?
Yeah.
Van Halen, yeah, 100%.
AC/DC. I mean, it was just like, it's fine when guys sing about it, but when a girl suddenly did, then it was like a controversy, which was, looking back at it, so stupid.
Yeah, yes, because again, I would argue this is far more benign, especially this album, that compared to what was going on by the guys in rock at the time. even Like a Virgin, the lyrics are very, very safe. I made it through the wilderness. Somehow I made it through. Didn't know how lost I was until I found you. I was beat incomplete. I was sad and blue. Now, when you look at that and you realize now what a woman's struggle is, I would argue that's actually really, really, really telling lyrics. But in 1984, no one knew what the fuck she was talking about.
Yeah, nobody
did. And then you made me feel shiny and new, like a virgin touched the very first time. This is a woman who was beaten, sexually abused, and found someone who wasn't an abuser. That is what this song is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I will argue that throughout this album, there is some really great lyrical content in here that I think are, again, ruined from the production. And I don't blame Niles, because Niles is amazing. I don't blame Madonna. This was unfortunately what was happening in that early, from the 70s when things were switching from analog, which you and I both agree. I think analog is a far warmer. I mean, most musical purists like ourselves will argue that, and people will tell us we're stupid for it. But
I just think it sounds better. But yeah, I will blame them because this is their album. They put their names on it and they decided to go with this production style. You got to think at some point you're listening to the playbacks like, this sounds like shit.
Yes. I mean, I will admit, in my head, I remember some of these tracks and I remember them sounding better in my head than what they were listening to them on the album. Even my daughter, who I would assume was going to like this, she was like, that doesn't sound very good. She's like, it just sounds weird. She's like, it sounds fake. And I was like, nope, you're not wrong. I would love to see, I know Madonna is kind of doing her own thing these days. I actually I'm not a big fan of like remakes or redos and things like that, but I actually would love to see her go back to like some of her first couple albums and do a new version of them, like an updated version, I would love to see it.
Sometimes it works, man. Taylor Swift's redone a couple of her albums, and they're better than the originals. So
there you go. Yeah, no, that's a valid point. I wasn't even thinking of Taylor Swift. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. She has done that, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now after this, I want to kind of give some out now. At the time, with the style, with everything, the way the 80s was, and everyone being all still coked out from the 70s and getting in the Reagan's cokenomics, this album was considered like one of the best. Consequence of Sound ranked at number 2 in their top 10 greatest sophomore albums of all time. Saying that this is the album that made Madonna the queen of pop. I will argue that it was the follow-up to this, which was True Blue. I think True Blue was a much stronger third album that had 6 singles off of it, and she produced it herself. And I think that, even though I think it's great that Niles is on her, I actually think True Blue is far more of an indication of, like, that's when I would say Madonna really came into her own, because you had Live to Tell, brilliant song, Papa Don't Preach, brilliant song, True Blue, good song, Open Your Heart, good song, La Isa Bonita, great song.
Yep.
And so I would argue that, again, it was that album. This one needed to happen. It was the stepping stone, but that's what this is. It's to me, it's another prototype album. It was her finding where she was going. It wasn't fine-tuned. You can see the magic is happening, but it wasn't until True Blue and then Who's That Girl that really solidified her as awesome. And then, from there, I mean, again, she always had a hit. You Can Dance wasn't a great one, but then she had Like a Prayer, which made up for everything.
Yeah.
Like a Prayer is another classic Madonna release. So, Joe, would you recommend Like a Virgin?
No.
Unfortunately, I'm going to say no as well. I think there are songs here that are, I think, quintessential. You have to hear them.
But you can hear them on a hits collection.
Yes, and there have been remasters, not necessarily like remakes, but like remasters that I think warm these up a little bit. But
yeah, there's only so much you can do with that.
Yeah. There is the 2001, which had the Like a Virgin extended dance mix and Material Girl like a extended mix. Believe me, it doesn't help.
No, they do not.
They do not help. And then again into the groove, which should have been.
Yeah, it was on the European release, but we didn't get it.
We didn't get it. We got it as we got it on the Desperately Seeking Susan soundtrack, but we didn't get it outside of that, I don't think. Yeah. So there you go. Anything else you want to say about this album or Madonna in general?
Not really. I think we said our piece. Like, it's not a great album. It has great singles on it, but it falls flat. She would be doing much better after this.
Yes, and I'm going to allude to what you did as well. Madonna is one of those artists that is just, she is geared towards her greatest hits, or an immaculate. I think that's what it's called, isn't it? Isn't it the immaculate
collection? And that's like all the stuff up until the early '90s.
Yeah,
she just released like a greatest hits, like covering like all the decades, and like honestly, once she hit the 2000s, like I'll give her up to Ray of Light because I think that had some really good songs on it.
Yep.
But after that, it was downhill. She did the music, and that was a fucking terrible song. And the album was bad. I remember listening to it. Then she did like that protest album where she tries to look like Che Guevara on the cover.
Yeah, American Life.
American Life. That was a nightmare out. She's been around for she's going on her 5th decade now.
Yep, she's going on.
Awesome. I've seen her live. I saw her at the Billboard Music Awards.
Awesome.
Power to her. But for me, the stuff that I think is relevant stops after 1998, 1999.
Yeah, I would have to concur with you on that one. I mean, again, I think Rail Light has some good stuff on it. Music, I didn't like anything off of music, unfortunately. American Life, I think there was maybe one song, but I mean, at this point too, she was doing, she'd been doing movies. Evita was the big one for her, and I think really around that time, people have said that when she was doing Evita, she changed.
Well, it's when she developed that British accent.
Yeah, people said that Evita was really something that they God, who was it? I don't remember who it was, but they equated it to the Iceman. Come on, Top Gun, Iceman, help me out here. Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer.
Yes, thank you. Val Kilmer, when he did The Doors and how he was never the same after doing The Doors, they equated it to her kind of going so method she never got out of it. And I've kind of concurred with that theory. Just from everything I've been reading and hearing and, kind of following with Madonna, there was something that happened around Evita that just completely changed her. But honestly, again, I also appreciate her. I thought she was as serviceable in Dick Tracy. Madonna, Truth or Dare. I remember I wanted to see that movie for years. My sister would watch it all the time, and I have to leave the room when she had it on. Finally did watch it. It's great. And she was wonderful in A League of Their Own. Body of Evidence. I'm sorry, you put Willem Dafoe in any movie, I'm going to love it. She was, Four Rooms is also like a great movie. So yeah, I mean, there's things there, I know people love The Next Best Thing. I didn't, that's just not my style of movie. Same thing with Swept Away. And then I have not seen her 2005 documentary. My kids did enjoy, I will say, Arthur and the Invisibles, so they had the video game and the movie. And yeah, I didn't see Madam X either. So, I mean, to me, it's more about her contribution of what she did that's super important than any one single album or whatever. I think that she is like a Bowie. I give her props. She's able to just kind of, it seems like, seamlessly change directions and do what she wants to do. And she's always been very unabashed about it. Even with the stuff that she's doing now, it's her thing and she embraces it fully. And it's believable when she does switch to whatever persona she's doing. So there's my thing on Madonna. All right. That was a lot, Joe. So no, I don't recommend the album either. I'm with Joe. Get the greatest hits. Yep. All right, Joe. I know we got a lot of albums in the can right now, but do you want to tell us, or a lot of reviews in the can right now? Do you want to tell us what you and Joe are doing for the Joe Down?
Yeah, we don't have anything new yet. We're still charting those waters at the moment. So nope, nothing new.
All right. Well, same here. Although I will say that Griffiny has come to me with, now that she knows that the 4th and final season of Stranger Things is coming out, she is interested in revisiting the podcast. So we'll see if her parents will let that happen. I'm fine with it, but I also understand I don't want her talking to a weird guy in his 40s. Because that guy's fucking nuts. So yeah, other than that, that's all I got. Joe, why don't you tell us what we're doing, not next week, because both you and I are gone next week. But what about the week after? What are we doing, Joe?
All in the 80s, whenever Madonna, Michael Jackson had a hit song, this guy was soon to follow. We're doing 2 albums because they're relatively short. Dare to Be Stupid,
yes,
by Weird Al.
Yes.
And Even Worse by Weird Al.
Oh my God. Sold and sold.
We had to follow up Madonna with Weird Al.
I completely.
If you ever pick a Michael Jackson album, it's going to be followed up by Weird Al. It's just how it happens. It's how we were raised growing up.
Yes, which is so funny because I just listened to Dare to Be Stupid because of this album. So that's great. And then even worse, these are great. These are great short albums. I'm very happy to do two of them back to back. 100% phenomenal. Yeah. All right. Yes, I am sold on these two albums. So we're doing Weird Al, Dare to Be Stupid, and Even Worse.
Yep, Even Worse because it has one of the most fucked up songs you'd never expect from Weird Al. I think it's called Good Old Days.
Good Old Days.
Yep.
Yep. Good
Not expecting that kind of song from Weird Al, but there you go.
Yeah, well, and if I remember correctly, Dare to Be Stupid also has One More Minute, which is another one that you'd go, what?
Weird Al has a darker side.
I love Weird Al's darker side. I will say we're not doing it, but his 3D album, he has a song called Nature Trail to Hell in 3D, and it's actually one of my favorite Weird Al songs. And to give you an idea of also his darker weird side, my kids, the song Albuquerque is one of their favorite songs by him. Yeah. Yep. So, okay, buddy. Well, I'm sold on this. Okay, so we are both off next week, which is fine. And we'll be back then. Oh shit. No, we're off for 2 weeks, buddy. I'm going to be in Chicago, that Thursday night. I'm going to be in Chicago. So we are gone for 2 weeks, which is great because that'll give me time to compile all these and get our third season out. So there we go. So. Yes. So in 2 weeks, you and I will record again. And by that time, all these ones will be out. So that would be awesome. All right, Joe. Well, do you want to take us out, sir?
Nope.
This has been Rate That Album with Paul Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming. Thank you for listening.